Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So thank you, Karen, for the introduction. My name is Maria Romero. I'm with Lee County Natural Resources. I'm the principal planner and TM coordinator of our division. And today I'm going to talk about what can you do to protect the environment. And in among several things that you can do, you can also fertilize smart. If you fertilize yourself, or if you have a program to fertilize, you will know some key details, to do it without hurting the environment. So here I wanted to start, by talking about South Florida and the environment that we enjoy here. South Florida is different from other places. We have beautiful weather, it's nice and mild most of the year, and then really hot in the summer too. But that doesn't stop people enjoying the outdoors. The way of living here is very, very, very connected to the outdoors. When you picture Florida, things that you think of are like palm trees, wildlife, swamps. Some people will think about swamps, beaches for sure. And then people coming on vacation, enjoying themselves outside, retirees for sure. So when you think about all these, the things that connect everything is water quality. Like if we wouldn't have beautiful outdoors, healthy, beaches, rivers, people wouldn't come. They wouldn't feel comfortable, they wouldn't feel safe here, and it wouldn't be as beautiful as it is. So for us to keep living the way we live, to keep Florida like Florida, it is very, very, very important that we all do our part and try to minimize how we impact the environment or the water quality. We all have seen, like, recent years we have had like some problems with our water quality, and the good news is like we can solve the problems if we work together. So some people may think like, well, what I do affects the water quality. Well, because we all live in the water. Like this picture of like different areas of Lee County, and you can see how all beaches, ponds, everything is connected, and all of this water, all in Lee County, finishes, is going to finish in a river, and it's going to end up in the estuary. So water is is a is a dynamic thing that just moves through the land. So even if you think like you are not a waterfront property, that doesn't matter. Everything you do can potentially impact the water quality in your area. So today we're going to talk a little bit about ponds. This is the goal of these seminars, is to learn a little bit more about ponds. So I could concentrate my presentation today in ponds. These ponds are not natural, they're man-made. We have thousands of them in Lee County, and they are designed to reduce pollutants from runoff water. They are engineered to potentially reduce like 30% of the pollutants, hopefully more, that get in the water and go to these ponds after like a rainstorm. Um, so the problem with this is that not all ponds work as they should. When they are not maintained properly, and they stop doing the function that they were designed to do, and then the water will leave that pond eventually, and it will affect other water bodies. The soil in the ponds is very, very important. It's pretty much where the action happens when we talk about nitrogen, which is one of the worst pollutants, nitrogen and phosphorus. So when we talk about nitrogen, the action happens microscopically in the bottom of the ponds. If the pond is working well, this nitrogen will disappear from the pond into the atmosphere. But if it's not working as it should, even sometimes this slug, this mud in the bottom can even fixate nitrogen. So the key of solving the problem is just good maintenance and community awareness. We all need to know that what we do matters and everything that we do can affect the water quality. So when someone say like, so how should my pond look? Well, the truth is like the most your pond looks like a natural system, the better it works. Nature is, is very intelligent in the way that moves nutrients. And we humans, we try to mimic it to make things, work like they should. The better we mimic it, the better. So let's talk about the sources of pollution around a pond. There are many, many sources of pollution. Like for example, failing septic tanks. That's something that has been talked in the past years. It has been talked a lot. Some septic tanks that are not being maintained, sometimes they leak, and this affects the water quality of the water bodies around it. Another thing would be irrigation. Um, many of us use irrigation in our houses, and if these sprinkles aren't directed to the grass, if they are directed to impervious surfaces, they may run off and get into water bodies or stormwater systems. Irrigation is not designed for that. Irrigation is designed to water green areas. So if irrigation is not watering green areas, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Pool pumping. This seems like crazy that some people would, empty their pool into the pond behind their house, but it seems like it happens. It has been, documented, people doing it, and that's something that we should totally avoid. Low clippings. Low clippings, they really are like organic material. So when you add them to the pond, you're adding organic material that isn't supposed to be there. That most likely is just gonna go to the bottom and it's gonna take a long time, to disappear. And it's just gonna like eventually become like mud in the bottom, which is gonna affect the way that the pond works and eliminates nutrients. Other things are things like herbicides. Herbicides are used in many, many houses, and sometimes they're overused. And these can also, by themselves, they can apport nutrients, or even the decaying plants can apport nutrients. Domestic animal poop that also definitely has nutrients that will pollute the water bodies. That's why it's very, very, very important if you have pets, to dispose of their feces in the right way in the trash. And, some people think like, oh, it's fertilizer. It really is not. It has bacteria and it has some pathogens. So it is important, for all, to pick up the waste, the animal waste, to not to pollute our water bodies too. Plant trimmings is the same that lawn clippings. We need to remove them from the water bodies. Other thing is trash. Many of us see trash in creeks and canals and ponds, and sometimes it's just people is not meaning to throw trash. It's just, for example, someone is in their dog and they have plastic, glasses, and they have a party or whatever, and then they don't pick them up, and then a storm comes or it gets windy and they are blown and they finish in the water. Or people like has trash in the back of their trucks, and then they go in the road and all that trash blows over and finishes in our stormwater systems. So sometimes this trash, you know people is throwing the trash like in purpose, and other times they don't even know they're doing this. So it's important to be organized and always, when you are enjoying the outdoors and having any activity, leave it exactly like it was, to avoid these things happening. So I wanted to like point here that many of these things um, are have something to do with landscaping. Landscaping has, here in Florida, like has a big like role to play when we want to avoid pollutants in the water. If we do our landscape, in a sustainable way, we will enjoy better outdoors. We will enjoy like cleaner, water, so and cleaner ponds. So we need to be very conscious and always try to use best management practices when we do our landscaping. So when we have been talking a lot about what nutrients go, into the ponds and affect the ponds. So something we need to think is that ponds are dynamic systems. The way you see a pond today may not be the way you see a pond in a month. Like some of us that live, in canals or ponds, we know that maybe the way the pond looks today is not the way that it's going to look in 3 years, in 4 years. The fish community may change, the plant community may change, the color of the water may change, the mud will accumulate if we are not doing a good job. So a pond is not something that we build and stays the same way until the end. Then something that we need to keep in mind with our ponds is like plants and algae remove nutrients. So the more stable the nutrients are in our pond, that will make the ponds more stable, their look too over time. So if we have a good program, with our plantings, and we are cautious about the way we fertilize and we act, in our community, that will maintain our ponds more stable and looking, closer to what it was when we, installed them at the beginning. So other thing that people doesn't think besides plants and algae is animals. Animals also influence the nutrient cycle. Um, you know, a lot of people like feed ducks in the ponds or turtles. It is different when an animal is in the pond and is eating algae, like for example, well, ducks and turtles, they both are omnivores. So they would eat algae, they would eat plant, and it is different than when you are, feeding them bread and making more and more of them to come to the pond, then their feces and the way they act in the water, it will affect the water quality. Here there is a picture of me when I, bought my house. I was fishing with a worm in the back of my house, and I caught a huge grass carp on a worm, probably because it was really hungry and there was like no vegetation behind my house at all. So it was so hungry that I ate my worm. I wasn't trying to, I wasn't targeting grass carp, but I happened to like caught that, and it was incredible. By the way, my house doesn't look like that anymore. It has a very lush green grass, and that's all you can see. Right now I have bushes and trees and other plants. Like it looks closer to, a little bit closer to nature. It's more diverse. I really never like the grasses that are just like that. Anyways, like we were talking, many Americans like lush green lawns. There is a problem with these. Lawns don't have deep roots. They don't take nutrients like a tree may be able with deeper roots. So there is more leaching and more runoff too when we just have a green lawn. So it's very important to try to, be diverse in our landscaping. Um, Also, the truth is like it's more attractive. Like when you grab a, fashion magazine, about a home magazine or something like that, when you see a pretty lawn, it has diversity, it has flowers here, other plants, and it looks diverse, and that's what is considered being more beautiful than just green lawn, and it's better for the environment. um with grass, sometimes like people have them like growing just to the edge of the pond, and that that's really bad, because then they will have to maintain the grass to the edge, and the clippings of that grass can get in the water. They may fertilize, which is illegal, by the way. Like, you cannot fertilize in the edge of the water. Like in Lee County, I think our buffer is 10 feet. Other parts like Sunnyvale, I believe, is 20 or 25 feet. So this is better just to have, even for the edge of the water, to make it more stable. It's better to have like plantings in the edge. But anyways, this can be a problem, and it can be a problem also to maintain it green and fertilize. So how to prevent and control algal blooms or blooms? And I put it algal in parentheses because sometimes we can have blooms of just like vegetation, when the vegetation goes out of control and we don't have, water, it's all vegetation in the pond. That will happen because there are too many nutrients. When we have algal blooms, when the water goes green, toxic or not toxic, it doesn't matter. When we have blooms, it's because there are too many nutrients in the water. So ways to reduce this could be keep fertilizers off roads and driveways, because it's gonna rain and that's gonna travel. These fertilizers are gonna like travel with the water and they're gonna pollute our pond or our waterways. They also can stain. Like if you leave fertilizer in a driveway, you may find later like a rusted color, and that's gonna stain your driveway. So even because of that, it's not advised. Then we can also decrease or eliminate the use of fertilizers on the bank slopes of ponds. This actually is by law. We shouldn't fertilize, in Lee County at least, we shouldn't fertilize like more than, 10 feet from the water. Like we have to be at least 10 feet. In the state of Florida, actually. And other places even more. We need to properly dispose of grass clippings and yard waste. Don't throw them to the water. Like we said before, pick up pet waste and throw it in the trash. This also has bacteria, like we said before. It's not good to have it next to the water. Something else that people was paying attention now was like watch cars in the lawn, not in the driveway. Sometimes in our driveway we have storm water systems under, and the water goes sometimes like straight to our pond in the back of our house, or it goes in our stormwater system, and it's going to finish in our waterways. Then don't feed the wildlife. When you feed them, you're introducing more nutrients, you're attracting more wildlife, that the amount of wildlife that your pond naturally can sustain. So it is something to avoid, and it's also illegal. Then plant shoreline wetland plants. This is important for the stability of your pond too, and the water quality of your pond. Other thing that we can do is install floating wetlands to utilize nutrients from the water. This is something that some people have done, and they have had like really good results reducing pollutants. The only problem with this is sometimes it's maintenance, because someone has to go to the floating wetland, platform and maintain it, and that's the only problem. But from the water quality point of view, it has had like good results. Other thing that you can do is install aeration of bubblers. What this does is mix the air in the pond, so it makes the microorganisms in the bottom of the pond to be able to get rid of this excess nitrogen easier. And it works really good. I have heard that it can even like diminish, the mud in the bottom of the pond over time, which is something really good. And then other thing you should avoid is to use copper sulfate in your stormwater pond. You should avoid to, use herbicides in your pond. You don't know how much you are using or your neighbors are using. You all can be like, creating a problem without knowing. So it's better to avoid herbicides and all those things. So now let's talk about fertilizers. And that's one of the biggest problems when we talk about landscaping and nutrients in the water. Here, this is an old campaign from Lee County. They talk about phosphorus and nitrogen. And this is because these are the two main nutrients that pollute our waterways. When you buy a fertilizer bag, you're gonna see three numbers on the top. You're gonna see nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And those are the macronutrients that the grass need to grow. This is like the bread of, for us, like this is a basic thing that we need, that the grass needs to grow. So I put nitrogen and phosphorus in red, and potassium, I put it in blue. This is because nitrogen and phosphorus are the main pollutants in our waterways nowadays, and potassium is not even a pollutant. It's a macronutrient for the plants, but it's not a pollutant. So there it is, not a pollutant. Nitrogen is a very bad pollutant. When applied responsibly, it's absorbed by the grass, especially St. Augustine grass. I'm not saying we should put St. Augustine grass in our lawns. I'm just saying it has very, very, very high needs for nitrogen. So when we have nitrogen, St. Augustine grass, that's the most common grass I see in residents here in Lee County. They have really, really high needs for nitrogen. So whatever, like when you put it, if you put the right amounts, they will be absorbed. When you put more than the grass needs, you're just wasting your money, and it's just gonna end up polluting the creeks and the waterways. Phosphorus is also naturally abundant in most of Lee County soils, but it is one of the worst sources of non-point pollution in Lee County. So it is different when it is in the soils and the plants can access to it, and when we apply to the grasses, in our landscapes, and they escape with runoff and finish polluting our waterways. Then something I wanted to mention, here in Lee County, we have a ban on fertilizer from June 1st to September 30th. And the rain is actually fertilizing. The rain brings nitrogen. So the grass is taking nitrogen from the rain in summer. We all know in summer, like the grass grows like crazy. We need to cut our grass just quickly. Why to fertilize the grass in summer? It's just gonna grow faster. We're not killing our grass by not fertilizing it. This was a study that was done many years ago, and it was determined that when people fertilize between June 1st and September 30th, many of those fertilizers that are water soluble finish in our creeks, and in our waterways, and eventually, they can become blooms, algae blooms. So it doesn't mean, that you have to fertilize before June 1st. That's something that you should avoid too. Just fertilize responsibly. We're gonna learn now how to do it, and yeah, definitely try to avoid to fertilize in the summer. Nature is doing the work for you, and we all deserve a break. So why to keep fertilizing and doing all these things, when we don't need to in the summer? So the way to, like I said, for example, here we have a ban on fertilizers in the summer. So you need to check your local ordinances to see, what is allowed and what is not allowed. Like I said before, here there is 10 feet buffer to the water. And if you do your fertilizer by yourself, you can use a fertilizer calculator. We here in Lee County, we have developed one. This is the website. I probably, maybe Karen can, or maybe I can put this link later in the chat for everybody. Other thing, you can use this link, or you can also go to leagueup.com and then click on natural resources. And then this picture here is gonna be it's gonna appear in an icon down there. You just click on it and the fertilizer calculator will come up. So I'm gonna show you very briefly what this calculator looks like. So when you put that link in your browser, the link that I show you in the slide, this will come up. So this fertilizer will show you how to fertilize responsibly and following the ordinances. So then you click here next. This is a very typical when you buy a bag of fertilizer, you will see three numbers, like I said before. The first number usually is the nitrogen, the second number is the phosphorus, and this is the potassium, okay? So these two are the pollutants. So these two are the ones that, the nitrogen and the phosphorus, those are the ones we need to look. So here Anders says, the total nitrogen is 26%. This means for 100% of this bag, 26% is nitrogen. We have another requirement here in Lee County is that 50% of all this nitrogen should be a slow release, which is important because slow release is not, it has less chances to like go into runoff, you know, or leaching, and it's gonna put fertilizer in your ground for longer time. So it's gonna feed your plants for longer time, okay? So the way to look, there is gonna be a little letters here at the bottom of your tag that is gonna tell you how much of that slowly available nitrogen there is. So for example, here it says 19.4% is slow. So it's saying 26% of this bag is nitrogen. From this 26%, 19.4 is slow. So if you think about if 13% is slow, that's 50%. That's agreeing with the ordinance. If it is, let's say, 10%, then you don't have enough slow release. It would be less than half of the total nitrogen. So here is how you do this. Like you can pull the calculator in your phone, on your computer, wherever. You just have to do this one, you know, with one bag. So you say total nitrogen 26, right? Is the first number. So you can put it here. Let's say this is the bag we bought. Then it says total phosphorus. Then we can write it here, 4, okay? And then it asks you, what's the percentage of slow release? We read here, 19.4. So you say 19.4. And then here we'll tell you a message, and we'll say 74.6% of this bag is slow release nitrogen, and maybe apply within Lee County. Let's say we put 3. You see, this fertilizer contains just 11.5 of slow release and may not be applied. So let's leave it like it was, just 20 is fine. So then we go next. If we know the size of what or long, you know, we can just use this and say like, okay, so my lot is 10,000 square feet. My house is like, let's say 3,500 for the driveway and all that. Let's say 6,500. We can estimate it and then we do next and then we will be done. If you don't know, there is another thing that we can do here. You can go to measure it yourself. So here is gonna give you a little explanation on how to use it. You gotta select this little green square here to open the measurement tool. Then you click on the map to start and add segments as needed. And then you double click to finish. So I say, okay. So let's get a random house, okay? This is a random house. Let's do this one. This one, for example.
Hey, quick question, Maria.
Yes.
You could just put your address in there too, right?
You could here. Yeah,
Okay.
to find your house. Yes, you can put
Great.
your address.
Okay, thanks.
So let's do like this random house. So let's start here. If you fertilize the right of way, which you probably do, you can start here, okay? And then you get to your driveway. You don't fertilize your driveway, so you don't select it. And I'm not selecting all those rocks, okay? So then you just click every corner. It looks like there is a patio there, so I'm not gonna select the patio. You go like this, and you do this, and then you come back down the driveway, and then to the edge of your house, okay? And then it looks like we selected everything, double click, and it's telling you 7,850 feet of, you know, pervious surfaces of green space. So, okay, we know that. So now we come back 7,800. We can come here and it's like, okay, 7,000. Oh, sorry. 7,800. So that's it. And then we are like, next. And that's it, we're done. We know how much we can get. So from the back, the maximum amount allowed per application would be 30 pounds. That doesn't mean you have to put 30 pounds. That means that that's the maximum amount. So you can put less. You can always put less. Because you may get the same effect by putting less. And so it's better always to be, safe than sorry. And then the maximum amount allowed per year in your space is 97 pounds. So if we put the maximum amount, we can apply fertilizer just 3 times a year in this location. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you can get the same effect by putting less, you're more than welcome to do it. Like, it's better for the environment, it's better for your pocket. So here we have, again, a reminder, June 1st to September 30th, please don't fertilize. The rain contains nitrogen. If you fertilize, you're just gonna be like cutting the grass like way more, and nobody wants to do that, right? So that's it. And then here, if you have any questions, you can email us, whatever question it is, and then you will submit, and it will get to an expert. And that's it. That's our fertilizer calculator. It's really easy to use. You just need to calculate your space once you have calculated the space you have, and you know how much green areas you have. Just have to put the numbers there, and it's going to be even it's going to be way faster, because you just grab the bag of fertilizer and you have the numbers there, and the only other number that you need to know is, if you don't know it, you calculate it, but if you know it, you just put the number of the space, the square meters in your house. So with this, I'm ending my presentation. I just like a better, brighter future I know is possible. And with the right tools, humanity has accomplished the unthinkable. So we can keep, accomplishing, better things for the planet and for ourselves, and keep Florida being Florida, if we all work together. And if you have any questions, my email is up there. You can also go to Wetplan and email us in Wetplan any questions you may have. And thank you very, very much for being here and listening at this presentation. Hopefully, you learned something you didn't know, or hopefully you enjoy.